Hello puppies! You are welcome to General Studies class. I am Uncle Poco. I'll be taking you on social studies today. But before we go into today's lesson, let's start with our usual opener of our lessons. Uncle Popo is here. I am also here. We are here together. 100% attention. Good. You have given me 100% promise that you will listen carefully. The subject for today is social studies. In our last lesson, we discussed about effects of substance abuse. There, we discussed about what a drug is. We also talked about drug abuse. Wrong use of drug is known as drug abuse, or using drugs without doctor's prescription is known as drug abuse. Today, we are looking at another topic, and the topic for today is effect of normal and excessive use of drugs. Effect of normal and excessive use of drugs. The learning objectives. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to explain the effect of normal drug use, identify consequences of excessive drug use, describe factors causing drug abuse behavior, and lastly, list effects of abuse of stimulants. Effect of normal drug use. Normal use of drugs produces the desired effect. This happens only when we take drugs following the prescription of a medical professional. When you take the prescription of a medical professional, it's advisable for you, and that is the normal use of drug. When you use drugs according to doctor's prescription, your body will be healthy and you are good to go for any task. Effects of excessive drug use. Excessive use of drugs leads to addiction. Addiction is a condition that affects your brain and behavior. When addicted to drugs, you can't resist the urge to use them, no matter how much harm the drugs may cause. You can't resist that urge to use them. Factors causing drug abuse behavior. Some factors causing drug abuse behavior are pleasurable effects of some drugs. Pleasurable effect of some drugs. Some people find it very difficult to withdraw from using certain drugs because of the pleasure they thought they are getting from such drug. For example, somebody smoking cigarette. Despite the advice of Federal Ministry of Health that smokers are liable to die young, still we have many people that have been addicted to smoking of cigarettes. Next is unpleasant effect of withdrawal. Unpleasant effect of withdrawal. Some find it difficult to withdraw from using certain drugs that they are being addicted to because they feel that there will be certain pain that they will get after leaving it. That is why they keep on being addicted to such drug. Next is inability to control peer pressure. Inability to control peer pressure. The drugs we are talking about, some people were influenced by their friends and they can't resist them because they would think they are not part of that society or group if they refuse it. That is why you still seeing them into drugs. Next is presence of the drugs in the environment. Some environments have influenced some people into drugs because the environment has made them to be exposed to certain drugs. They see the people, the community, the elderly ones, they are taking the drugs, and they see it as a good way to cope in the community, and they indulge into drugs. Presence of the drugs in the environment. Another factor is ignorance. Some think when you get to a certain age, you move with certain group of people, You have to be part of them. You have to do what they are doing. They lack that knowledge about the effects of drugs on their lives. Let's move on to the effect of abuse of stimulants. Stimulant in this context is referring to something that increases the activity or nervous system of a person. And these have some psychological effects on the users. What are the effects? Restlessness. Restlessness, such a person will find it difficult to sleep, to calm in the society. Insomnia. Insomnia, another word for insomnia is sleeplessness. After taking those drugs, some will find it difficult to sleep. Next is mental disorder. Mental disorder, let me explain that through this picture. You can see this very fine lady here. Before it's been taken to stimulant, and this is after the effect. You can see the difference between the two. The effect of abuse of stimulant will cause this into somebody's life. And how? When you take the drug, you will think that if you withdraw from using that drug, you may not be able to cope with some pains that will come after that. Because of that, you continue using the drug and it keeps damaging and destroying somebody's life. Loss of appetite. One may lose interest to it. After consuming or taking those stimulants, they lose appetite and it will be affecting the person's body. Conversion. Conversion is the shaking of your muscle. That's why you see some people that are into these stimulants, you see them walking on the road shaking, or some sitting down shaking their body as if something wrong had happened. Really, something really wrong had happened. Withdrawal. Some find it difficult to even withdraw from using the drugs. Withdrawal is another effect. Dependence. Some will just think that their own life can only run with the help of stimulant. That is why they depend majorly on the use of that drug. If they don't use it any day, they will find it difficult to run the activity of that day. Let's look at the socio-economic effect of abuse of stimulants. One, poor working performance. Poor working performance. Anybody indulging into these surely will have a poor working performance, maybe at school or at work, and it's a problem. Another effect of abuse of stimulant is debt. Debt is also another effect. Some people majorly depend on the use of this stimulant. At times, they may not have money to purchase it, so they borrow from friends and people around because they believe they can do without using the stimulants. Next is stealing. If they have borrowed from this, borrowed from that, and nobody to borrow from again, they go into stealing for the purpose to get that stimulant to use. Next is fraud. Another effect of abuse of stimulant is fraud. Some people, if they don't have any means to work on to get the money to purchase the stimulant, they go into fraud. Next is robbery. That's why you see some of the robbers today who have taken stimulant before going for robbery to affect their system and nervous system, to affect their system. Social outcast. Such a person will not be very useful in the society or community it belongs to. That is why they have a separate place for them and regard to them as, I will not like to call the name here, you know what I'm talking about. Incomplete education. You see, some people dropping out of school because the effect of the stimulant has affected majorly all parts of their life, and they are not able to complete or continue with their education again. Today, we have looked at the excessive use of drugs, which leads to addiction. We've also talked about some common factors causing drug abuse behavior, where you were told that inability to control peer pressure, presence of the drugs in the environment is another factor, Ignorance is another factor. We've also discussed about some psychological effects of abuse of stimulants, where we talked about mental disorder. We also talked about dependence. We talked about insomnia. And lastly, we discussed about socioeconomic effects of abuse of stimulants. We talked about robbery there, poor working performance, fraud. This is all what we have for you today. But before I call it a day, let's look at the evaluation to test our concentration percentage. Read the question, just supply your answers. Do not write the question. Your time starts now. Eyes on me? Good. Let's check the answers. Excessive drug use leads to addiction. These are the answers. Check yourself to see how you've performed for today. If you got all the questions, I give you thumb up. We have come to the end of today's lesson. Until next time, next lesson, I remain Uncle Popo.